Hey DBJ, I've been away for a while. I want to talk about languages in role-playing games, more or less specifically Dungeons and Dragons and its variations, as opposed to say alien languages. I'm in the group that I never particularly liked languages. I never felt they were integrated in the game very well. I don't speak other languages. My brain just got hardwired, and it's very difficult for me to understand them. I always felt like languages just inhibited the game anyway. It to me just felt like it got in the way. But as I usually do, I try to look at both sides and I try to find the positive, the creative force for bothering to even use languages. So I'll give you my 2 cents and would love some feedback on this. And this actually comes about because the most recent encounter I had with languages was in within the Ring of Fire, and in within the Ring of Fire game, there's no standard language. Like there's no common, there's no English, there's no universal language that all races speak at all times. And there's also various languages based on social status. There are blasphemous languages that should not be spoken or considered just blasphemous and evil compared depending on the religion that you worship. So it got me thinking about using languages, especially for people who really don't like using them at all. And I'm kind of one of them. Well, one thing about languages is that most of the time we only think of languages in two regards. One's verbal. Hey, does my character understand it or not? Can my character hear what they're saying or speak to a creature or NPC so that they can be understood? You know, can I speak Elvish because I want to talk to the Elven Queen or something? And then written languages, and that usually devolves into like read magic, and if it's not read magic, it's an ancient manuscript, and you just default, to the smartest person in the room, the wizard or the bard or something like that, whatever. Well, I think languages should be looked at holistically. And what I mean by holistically is that they're spoken, they can be heard, written, there's body language, there's the age of the language and why it's being used. So I like to break languages apart in chunks and then have characters use that language. And I usually add like a little colorful adjective or some kind of descriptor or something to make it different. And as always, I'm going to give a lot of descriptions and a lot of examples. All right. My first example is the classic AD&D Thieves' Cant, and that seems to be one of the few languages. I think the second language you think about this would be with the Dark Elves, the Drow or Dro, however you want to pronounce it, where the language, when it's been done using literature, books and novels and things, and its descriptors include like body language, include the ability to speak in front of others, and passersby who don't know what you're saying will not get the gist of what you're saying because they think you're just having a regular conversation. There's sign language where you can pass messages or give indications across rooms silently just using your hands. But I would even go further. Say with something like Thieves' Cant, graffiti. If you're in an urban area, there might be signs and symbols or words scrawled on walls that will, send you to the local gambling hall or local brothel, and characters who are not familiar with Thieves' Cant wouldn't know that. Also, Thieves' Cant would probably be useful in determining the best places to go for black market items. who to talk to, how to approach someone, and what to say to that person, so you don't look like the local guard or the cops or something like that. Pretty much like a very urban, Ebonics kind of thing, where you're speaking a language. It's not necessarily a different language, but it's how your tone, the pronunciation, the slang terms that you're using. But I would take some other languages too, say Draconian, language of the dragons. I consider that to be like Latin, and one of the few ancient languages that can describe fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional references in a language. Being able to describe what teleportation is like in dimensional travel and time travel, and time stopping, and warping someone's soul, and the English language might not be appropriate for that, but say a Draconian language would definitely be for magic. But let's take something like Dwarven. Yes, the dwarves may have their own language, but I can imagine their language would be just as effective in using runes. Runes in tunnels and on stones, maybe given as gifts, that describe, battles or family members or heirlooms. I can imagine the dwarves using their language to warn other dwarves about the condition of caves and things of that nature. Almost like when you're driving down a highway and they have the road signs. You have these things in the caves, and other dwarves would be able to read them to know about the dangers to look for. Like Eskimos that have hundreds of names for snow. I'm sure dwarves have plenty of names for all the different kinds of what they would consider to be different environments underground, and to be able to scrawl that on a wall, leave a message for those that are going to pass by, and when another dwarf sees it, they would know that there's to be careful of the gray ooze that seeps out of the walls, or the lair of the mind flayers that's 40 miles forward and 6 miles deeper into the catacombs or something of that nature, where other people would not be able to understand the simple chisels and scrawls on the wall. But also with languages as well, social status may have a particular thing. For example, you could have Elvish would be the language of the rich. And so therefore, if you do not speak this language, or you are speaking this language, there may be assumption of your social status. And so you could actually have variations of social status. And like within the Ring of Fire, particular religions may use a particular type of language. And also, it could be that some languages just do not have the words to describe certain things. For example, like Draconian to me reminds me of Latin, and it may not be the language appropriate for social interaction. Maybe it is purely an academic language. It's like speaking in Latin, speaking in legalese, or speaking using what they would use in medical school or something. That wouldn't be appropriate for a love letter. These particular languages are only good for one particular subject matter, and therefore cannot or would not be used to describe things. You wouldn't scream out in Draconian; it just wouldn't make any sense. But if in Thieves' Cant, you could yell something out in Thieves' Cant, and it would let everybody know who knows that, hey, the popo's coming by, and you need to run for it. And the other passersby are like, what's this person he's screaming out? And then here comes the city guard, and those who know, they bolt for it. So I would attempt to separate languages by their usefulness. For example, some languages may not be able to describe nuances. Maybe Orcish or the Goblinoid languages would not be able to do that. But I have a problem with having like 30, 40, and 50 languages for like every single monster and every single race. I just group them all together. Like to me, the goblinoid races would just be, to me, just to have one language amongst them. Yeah, you'd have your little pigeon languages and variations here or there, but no, I don't see that. I know I'm rambling on about like how to use languages and what to do with them, and I'm sure there are plenty of you out there who are language experts, far smarter than I am, but as a role-playing tool, I think just using common can make things a little bit boring. It's a little bit strange. It's almost like it's like Star Trek, where every planet they go to, everyone there speaks the same language. And oh, by the way, they all speak English as well. It's just this, the intergalactic language of everything. And it makes things real simple, but it does take away some of the flavor and culture. So I would just say to use language to me, for me, would just be to use it as a flavor text, so that when PCs encounter specific cultures and you want to dive them into that culture, that language may be specific to a specific type of theme you're making, but not to just put a stamp like there's Elvish, and Elvish and Dwarven are exactly the same. They operate exactly the same, except one is Elvish and one is Dwarven. Because in a way, that actually takes away some of the cultural nuances and flavors too. So if you have a Dwarven language, for me, I would say, let's say it's only spoken and it's used for runes, whereas an Elvish language wouldn't use, runes at all. They would, it might be a very elegant, flowery, almost perfect for poetry and the arts, and describing very in minute detail the emotional and feeling of something. They may have hundreds of words for the color of the sky and how a rose smells or something like that, and it may not be very useful, but it may be awesome to use in social interactions, especially when trying to persuade someone, something like that. So, and of course, I wouldn't add any game bonuses or penalties or anything, except for understanding or not understanding the language. But yeah, I would add languages in there that are only written, languages that are only spoken, languages that are sign languages. You can go with the body language thing, although that might be more of an etiquette style. But like in the Salvatore books, the Drow use the Drow have always been known to use a sign language for combat, to let each other know what's going on. It's completely silent, and I could see something like that. There could be a heraldry language using flags, smoke, fire, flaming arrows, horns, and music to notify troops, things like that. So, yeah, if you're like me, and I know I am, you hate languages, and I personally don't like it when you have like 25, 30 languages and you're trying to sift through them all, especially when there isn't a differentiation between them. So I would pick a handful. For me, I wouldn't go higher than 10 if you're having trouble with languages. And then just beside them, I just note like, hey, this is the language of magic. This is the language of mass combat. This is the language of the goblinoids. This is the language of the undead. This is the language of religion. And just kind of go that way. And just give a couple of little descriptors and whatnot. Fudge over it if you have to. Add some flavor. And also, this gives you the opportunity to, like when players find magic items, what kind of language is written on the hilt of the sword or in the cave entrance or something like that. And then, again, just as always, adding flavor. Always run circles right back to the group. Add more flavor to your story, that kind of thing. So anyway, here's my language rant. Don't really have any way to end it, and I try not to come too prepared. So thanks for your attention, and I'd appreciate any kind of comments to clean it up and whatnot. So anyway, thank you guys, and have a good one. As always, create, don't destroy.